Well, I have 10 o'clock at the top of the hour here. It is a different time in your time zone, of course. We're going to go ahead and get started. And it's my honor to introduce our speaker, Lee Roebeck. Today, he's an abundance coach and a professional speaker with Built to Win Academy, based in South Africa. And he has clients all around the globe. Lee's going to be sharing ideas that have transformed paradigms for hundreds of people with respect to goal achievement. And we're excited to share this knowledge with you to help release you from the fears that block you in your lives and businesses. Please welcome Lee Roebeck.
Marlita, thank you for the introduction and welcome everyone. Welcome, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from around the world. Welcome to our presentation here today of the masterclass on Face Your Fears and Achieve Any Goal. So before I get into what we're going to be covering during this presentation, I'd just like to thank Marlita for partnering with me on this event. Marlita is a business coach, she's a life coach and a relationship coach, but she's a trained psychologist. So this is a lady that really deeply understands the concepts that we're going to be going through today. So this is what our goal for this webinar is. We would like you to take away the following. So in this presentation, you're going to learn the following. Number one, the 3 types of goals and which one is the only one worth pursuing. Secondly, I'm going to give you a proven formula to achieve any goal you desire, even when you don't know how. And thirdly, I'm going to show you how to overcome fear when it strikes so that you don't sabotage your success. Now, I'm sure you'll agree that those are very important concepts that we're going to be covering here today. So I want to encourage you to put all your distractions, set all your distractions aside. And really, for the next 30, 40 minutes, the ideas I'm going to cover, I want you to really give your focused attention to these ideas because they literally have the potential to change the rest of the course of your life or the rest of the course of your business. So let's get started. And I'd like to open up with a question. The question I'd like to ask you is, why is it important for you to have a goal? So drop in the chat window why you think it's important to have a goal. I'd like to see 1 or 2 responses here. To have direction, Jackie. To succeed, Carlos, correct. Gives clarity and purpose. All great answers. Helps you realize where you want to be. Johan Conradi. For direction. All answers that are spot on. I want to use an analogy. There's a ship on your screen in that harbor. That ship's on the right-hand side of the harbor. But that ship has a captain and a crew on board, and they program a final destination into the navigation system of that ship. So captain, crew, pre-plotted, mapped out destination. That ship leaves that harbor. I'm sure you'll agree with me that 9,999 times out of 10,000, that ship on the right is going to reach its destination. Unless it happens upon some act of nature, it's going to reach its destination. Now, this ship from the left-hand side of the harbor, this ship is a bit different because this ship, we take the captain and the crew off. We program nothing into the navigation system of that ship. We just start the engines and we let it go. I'm sure you'll agree with me again, that ship's probably not going to make it out of that harbor. And if it does, remember it's got no captain, no crew, nothing, it doesn't know where it's going. Just start the engines, let it go. If it makes it out of that harbor, it probably would end up shipwrecked, hit an island somewhere. It cannot go anywhere because it has no aiming point. Excuse me. Now, it's the exact same with the human mind. It's the exact same. And that's why having a clearly defined goal, you having a clearly defined goal, is so important, right? Now, this next idea that I'm going to share with you here could have a greater impact on your life than anything else. It certainly did on mine. Now, this right here is a goal card. So I've got my goal on a little card. This is what I'm going to achieve. This is the direction that I'm heading in. Now, if you decide what you want, and if you write it on a card, and you carry it with you loose in your purse or your pocket, and you read it as many times as you can every day, I guarantee you that it absolutely must happen. It must happen. Now, I'm very passionate about that, and that's a pretty bold promise. But how does it work, and why is that so? Have you ever decided that you were going to buy a red BMW or white BMW, and you decided you want this white BMW? You go to the dealership, you choose all your options, they order the car, they say there's a month, there's a month waiting list, you got to wait for the car, but you've ordered it, and because the car is all you're thinking about, you drive down the highway in the town or city where you live, and all you see coming up on the other side of the highway are those white BMWs. If you've experienced that, please drop a 1 in the chat window if you've experienced that. Now, there's quite a few people already. Chase, Jackie, Carlos, Sibusiso, Nikki. Those white BMWs are there all the time, but purely based on the thoughts you're thinking, you start noticing them, right? Now, that's how the mind works. That's how your mind works. It has a built-in cybernetic mechanism. And in terms of your business, in terms of growing your business, growing your income, there are opportunities around us all the time. And if we've got it on a card, if we're reading it as many times as we can every day, if we're focusing in on the goal, we're going to start noticing these opportunities, because that's how the mind works. I call it a cybernetic mechanism. Some other teachers call it a reticular mechanism. There's a built-in reticular mechanism. It's constantly a goal-seeking mechanism in your mind. Now, let's say you accept this idea. You say, Lee, that makes sense. Get my goal onto a goal card. I'm going to carry it with me, read it as many times as I can every day. Let's say you accept that idea. Before you get your goal onto the goal card, the second port of call I want to take you into here quickly is I want you to set your goal in the right way. Now, when I work with my coaching clients, I normally tell them that goals fall into 3 categories. We refer to them as A, B, and C type goals. And this is what I want to go through with you now. So an A type goal, the first type of goal, is something that you already know how to do. You know how to do it. My mentor, the great Bob Proctor, he tells a story in relation to A type goals. He says, one day he was conducting a seminar, and he says a man came up to him during the break and said, Bob, can I please speak to you about my goal? So Bob said, sure, man, go ahead. So the guy said, I'd like to buy a new Pontiac. So Bob said, Pontiac's a nice car. I've had a Pontiac. So Bob says to him, what are you driving now? The guy says, Pontiac. So Bob says, really? He says, how old's the Pontiac? So the guy says, it's 4 years old. How long have you had the Pontiac? The man says, 4 years. So Bob says to him, that's not really a good goal to have, because for 4 years you've known how to achieve it already. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't get yourself a new Pontiac, but that would not constitute a goal. Because a goal, when it's set in the right way, you're going after something that you haven't done before. So an A-type goal is a repeat performance. You want to stay away from it. Generally, when people move away from A-type goals, they move to what we call B-type goals. And this is what you think you can do. Now, some successful people live in this category, but the B-type goal is a very logical approach to it. Like this sort of individual, when they set the goal, they think like this, if I land those 2 contracts, if I sign those 2 contracts, if I get the right subcontractors in place, if I get the right funding, or I get the funding, the right resources, staff, if all of these things fall into place, I think I can achieve this goal. And the thing with the B-type goal, because it's based in logic, which is the polar opposite of inspiration, of emotion, it's the polar opposite. Often people get started, they get going, they're not inspired, and so they quit. Now, what I'd like to do here today is to really get you to stretch. Like really stretch and think big. Go up there where the air is thin and go after what we call a C-type goal. Now, a C-type goal is what you really want. I'd like to ask you this, what do you want? What do you really want? How often do we sit down and take a pen and ask ourselves, if I could have anything I wanted, what do I really want? And then allow your imagination to take this pen down any rabbit hole it chooses to take it down. How often do we do that? You know why we don't do that? Because we were taught at a very young age that the imagination, or they imagining it's, you're not being realistic. When you were a youngster in grade 1 or grade 2, you had this highly active imagination, and you picture things, and you're going to do this, and you stare out of the window, and your teacher would say, come back into the classroom, you're daydreaming again. Or you'd go home and you tell your parents, I'm going to do this. And they say, how are you going to do that? You got to be realistic. But I think we all know that the greats, people that have achieved great things, had highly evolved imaginations. When they started out, they didn't know how they were going to do it, but they knew that they will do it, right? When it was the particular star or the goal they were aiming at. So you don't need to, when you set a big fantasy C-type goal, when you start out, you don't need to know how, you just need to know that you will. The Wright brothers didn't know how they were going to get us into the air until they got there, right? Edison failed over 10,000 times at trying to create the incandescent light bulb. He didn't know how he was going to create the bulb until afterwards. You won't know how to achieve your goal until you get there. There's a quote I often mention in relation to a C-type goal from a speaker in America, Les Brown. He says, what's sad is not that most people aim high and miss. He said, what's sad is that most people aim low and hit. So if the current goal you're working towards is not big enough, I want to encourage you to stretch it. And, really say, is this something that is way out there? Something that's a fantasy right now from where I'm standing. Now, the suggestion I'm giving you, or the suggestions I'm giving you here around getting your goal on a goal card, setting a fantasy type goal. I did this a couple of years ago. I had set the goal to speak on an international stage as a speaker. And absolutely nothing qualified me for it. Nothing. I was working in an IT corporate career at that point in time. And, when I set the goal and I got it on the goal card and I carried it with me, then the voices start coming, right? Who do you think you are? What are you going to speak to people about? Who's going to listen to you? You're just a colored boy from the wrong side of the tracks. All these ideas start coming to mind. But anyway, let's park that goal. And I want to tell you a story quickly. So on the 13th of January 2019, I was carjacked. I was hijacked here in Johannesburg, South Africa. And it was a Sunday afternoon at 2:15. And it happened at a shopping mall close to where I live. So anyway, I pulled into the shopping center. All the stores were closed Sunday afternoon. And I parked in front of a furniture store because I wanted to look at the dining tables. We had just moved into a new place and I was looking for a dining table. So anyway, I got out and I was looking through the windows, and the next moment, this gray Volkswagen Golf pulls into the parking lot with blue lights on the dashboard. And I obviously thought that it was an unmarked police vehicle. But instantly my gut, my intuition told me, no, something's not right here. Anyway, these guys pulled into the parking lot and they rolled down the passenger side window, and the driver said out of the window, he said, you know, we just got a call that someone's trying to break into one of the stores. The next moment, the passenger in front and the passenger behind the driver both jump out, firearms in their hands, one coming to me from the left front and one from the right-hand side. So anyway, the guy from the left front comes up to me and he says, you know, where's your car keys? Starts stepping my pockets, and he says, where's your? So I say to him, it's in my right pocket here. So anyway, he takes the keys out, and these two guys then proceed to bundle me into the boot of my car. Now that Sunday afternoon, I was driving a little Volkswagen Polo, a small car. And I'm 6.5 feet tall, and these guys literally bundled me into the boot of that car. And to say the first 10 minutes was tough, just to calm myself and just to gain control of my thoughts. But anyway, 10 minutes later, they transferred me from that small car into the bigger car, into their car, the Golf. And at least I had a bit more leg room in there. But what started happening in the boot, in the trunk of that car, stories and ideas started playing on the screen of my mind from all of the stuff that I study. Obviously, being an abundance coach, a lot of concepts around mindset that I teach. I've got to be a product of the product first, right? So I've got to imbibe, internalize it before I can give it to anyone else. So I've been internalizing all these ideas for many years, and fortunate for me, these were the things that started playing in my mind in that boot. The first very handy thing that came up is I run a 6-month coaching program called Thinking into Results, and lesson 9 in the program is a lesson on attitude. And in that lesson video, Bob Proctor, he talks about a man by the name of Viktor Frankl. Now, Viktor Frankl was a Viennese psychiatrist who spent the war years in a Nazi concentration camp. And Viktor Frankl said, in the worst circumstance, we can search for meaning, or we can try and find meaning to life. I'm lying in the boot of that car, and this comes across the screen of my mind. And, you know, Viktor Frankl also said that regardless of the intellectual or physical abuse that they subjected him to, he could still choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of his mind. He actually, in fact, he called it the very last of human freedoms was your and my ability to think. So this plays in my mind, lying in the boot of that car. And I'm thinking to myself, gosh, you know, Lee, this is a tough spot you find yourself in. But relative to what that man went through, this is probably a walk in the park. And if he could hold a positive picture on the screen of his mind, surely you can try. So that is the first thing, very handy thing that came up. The second thing that came up, And if you have a pen and paper in front of you, I'd like you to write down these 3 steps I'm going to give you next. So the second thing that came to mind in that boot was there's a speaker from the West Coast of America by the name of Michael Bernard Beckwith. And Beckwith's 3-step approach to anything negative, anything bad that's happened to you or that's happening to you is this. Number 1, it is what it is. Accept it. It's either going to control you or you're going to control it, at least from a mental perspective. Now, to be honest with you, very early on in that situation, I gave it over to the universe. I said, Dad, you know, you in control here, you're running the show. Whether I make it out of this, you know, dead or alive, I accept the outcome because you're running the show. I mean, what was I going to do, right? 4-armed guys. The second step in Beckwith's approach is harvest the good. That's such a great word, right? Harvest. There's good in everything. If you're looking for it, you're going to find it. There's good in everything. If you're looking for it, you're going to find it. Now, you might be sitting behind your computer there and thinking, Lee, please tell me, what was the good in that situation you were in? Because I was looking for it, I found it. My 4-year-old son, Zach, was with me that weekend, and he could so easily have been with me at 2:15 on that Sunday afternoon. My sister, Chelsea, was supposed to come with me to look at these dining tables. Thank goodness she didn't join me, and she was at home. She was safe. So that was something immediately I could start celebrating. And the third step in his approach is forgive all the rest. Forgive means just to let go of completely. Abandon. Just, you know, let it go. And because these 3 steps played in my mind, laying in the boot of that car, I could immediately start praying for these guys. I prayed for their parents. I prayed for their kids, even though there was a possibility they were going to take me away from my boy. I prayed that they'd find a way to make it out of that sort of lifestyle, to make a meaningful difference in the world. You know, and I'm not telling you that to impress you, but rather to impress upon you that regardless of what's happening on the outside, you can still control your thinking. So that was the second thing that helped me. And anyway, about 3 hours later, they dropped me behind a big hospital here in Johannesburg called Baragwanath Hospital. It was about 5:15. And anyway, when they let me go, I phoned a family member, Keenan, and to come and fetch me. And when he got there, he said, geez, I can't believe how calm you are. Now, there was another exercise that I was involved in that I want to share with you that probably led to the calmness that Keenan's seen. I was part of a group of about 25 mindset coaches, consultants from all around the world, and we'd meet every day like this on a Zoom platform, and we were rewriting this chapter, Serenity, from a book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Just a 1.5 page chapter, and we were rewriting. It was a 90-day challenge. You know, if you miss one day, you got to start from day one again. But I started with the group on the 24th of October, 2018. So by the 13th of January, 2019, when this incident happened, I had been internalizing into that deep part of my mind, internalizing calmness, self-control, equanimity. So that was probably the reason I was so calm. Now, the 3 tools that I've shared with you had me mentally spiraling up in the trunk of that car. Imagine I didn't have those tools. I'd have been mentally spiraling down, and I'd have jumped out at the back of that hospital, an absolute emotional wreck. You know, does mindset coaching work? There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that proper elite level mindset coaching does work. It's no rah-rah motivation, you up today and you're down tomorrow day. Proper elite level mindset coaching does work. So you might be thinking, you know, why am I telling you this story? I think it's because right now, all around the world, people are feeling very discouraged, very fearful, negative with what's happening, you know, politically, with our economies. You know, it seems to be a lot of trouble right now in the world, the pandemic. And I just want to encourage you, you know, just like Viktor Frankl, in the worst circumstance, you can still choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of your mind. You have that choice. It's the last of human freedoms, right? And all the great leaders of the past, they've disagreed on virtually everything, but they've all agreed that you and I become what we think about. So we want to stay in charge of what's happening up there, what we're thinking about constantly. Now, just to bring my goal full circle, the very worst thing that could have happened to me turned out to be the very best thing, because that hijacking incident allowed me the opportunity to speak at the Hilton in Toronto on the 26th of March, 2019, to 110 business owners from all around the world at the Hilton in Toronto. And basically was the realization of the goal I had set a few years earlier. You know, Napoleon Hill, one of the greatest success teachers of all time, he said that every adversity, every setback, every challenge brings with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Right? Tough, challenging times, it's human experience, right? But often people are so focused on the negative or what's wrong that we not looking for the good in the situation. If something's very bad, when we work our way to the other side, the win is just so much bigger. And that's based on a very basic law called the law of polarity, right? For every up, you've got to have a down. If the distance from the wall on your left to the wall on your right is 5 meters, the distance back is 5 meters, right? If there'd be no inside to your room if there wasn't an outside. For every negative, you've got to have a positive. That's based on the law of polarity. So, harvest the good. If you're going through something really challenging in your business or in life, just harvest the good. So, there's one more concept I want to take you through. But before I do, I want to introduce you to a little image. Now, often before the pandemic, I would conduct in-person seminars. Never done it for over 1.5 years now. And, you know, I'd go up to someone in the room and I'd say to them, you know, can you tell me what the color of your first car was? And they'd maybe say red. I'd say, do you remember what the color of the interior was? And they'd say tan. And I'd say, okay, so do you have a picture of that car on the screen of your mind? They'd say, yes. I'd say, okay, now tell me what's the color of the front door of your house? And they'd say brown. A brown wooden door. I'd say, okay, open the door and go into your kitchen and go into and tell me what color is your refrigerator in the kitchen. And I'd say it's a silver fridge. And I'd say, does it have 2 doors or 4 doors? They'd say 2 doors. And I'd ask top and bottom or sides. And, you know, the person maybe say top and bottom. Then I asked them, do those doors open from the left to the right or the right to the left? And mentally, I literally see them go into, because you can see it in the eyes, right? I see them mentally go into the kitchen to look at which way those doors open. And then I'll say to them, when I ask you about your car picture, front door, you had a picture, correct? They'd say yes. The refrigerator picture, they agree. And then I'd say to them, okay, now tell me what your mind looks like. And gosh, 9 times out of 10, I get this blank stare, like literally. Now, don't you think it's strange that the most important thing, we don't have a picture to work with? And as human beings, we think in pictures, right? Everything in your life is an expression of your mind. How you walk, how you talk, how you meet and greet people, how confident you are, how shy you are, how you manage your staff, how effective you are at selling. Everything is an expression of the mind, yet the most important thing, we don't have a picture to work with. And that's why people go into treat anxiety and depression, and they go for years. They're trying to fix something and they don't have a picture. And as human beings, we think in pictures. A lot of people think the mind is the brain, yet the brain isn't any more your mind than your finger or your toenail is. In psychology, we know mind is more of a process or a function rather than an actual physical location. Your brain is an instrument of the mind. It's an electronic switching station, but it's not the mind. Now, there was a doctor way back in San Antonio, Texas, in 1934, a doctor by the name of Dr. Thurman Fleet, who understood this. He said, in the healing arts, we treat in symptoms, and until we treat the root cause, which he believed to be the mind, he said, we're only going to see temporary results. He said, no one's ever seen the mind, so I'm going to draw an image of the mind. This is the image he drew. You see a couple of circles and a couple of lines. And we call this the stick person. Now, looking at this initially, you might think, simple diagram, what's the big deal here? I can tell you, after studying this extensively every day since December 2016, it's extremely powerful when applied to goals, habits, fear. You'll see me apply it to fear now. So the doctor said, let everything from the neck up represent the mind, everything from the neck down represent the body. Now, that's not the way it is, right? Because remember I said the brain isn't anymore your mind and your finger or your toenail is. But we need an image to work with. The doctor then drew a line down the mind and he said, let the top half represent the conscious mind and the bottom half represent the subconscious mind. Now, your conscious mind is your thinking mind. It's your intellectual mind. It's where you pile the books up. Your subconscious is your emotional mind. It's the feeling part of your personality. A lot of people, most people, when we think of the feeling part of our personality, we think of this physical pump in the middle of our chest, right? Yet the ancient and the wise Greeks, they said that the subconscious mind was the heart of hearts. So the subconscious is your emotional mind. Now, I've introduced you to this image to take you now through the psychological process of fear when it comes to goal achieving. Now, there's 4 stages in this psychological process, and we're going to look at them one by one. So the first stage is called bondage. And I'm going to use an entrepreneur I worked with a couple of years ago as an example to explain how this psychological process works. But that entrepreneur on your screen, that stick person, could be you, it could be me, this entrepreneur in question, has X-type programming in the subconscious mind, which puts this person into an X-type physical vibration. They take in X-type action on the outside, and they get in X-type results. Now, X is obviously the algebraic equation for the unknown. X is different for all of us, right? Now, what sort of thoughts do you think this person's going to think on a conscious level when that thinking power flows to and through them? They're going to think thoughts that are in harmony with the programming, right? Now, for this entrepreneur, 27-year-old entrepreneur, I started working with it in 2018. He's in the business of LPG bulk gas supply. And at the time when he came into the coaching with me, his business, he had a quota of 300 tons from Cecil, from our local refinery. He had one tanker and one truck, one head and one tanker. And he had about 30, 40 clients. And his quota, his product was spoken for. And he was doing well by average standards, very well, in fact. I mean, he's young man, 27, easily affording the bond, the cars, the private schooling. Things were moving along very nicely for him. But he was in a comfort zone, right? And the thing with the comfort zone is it's a very nice place to be. It feels good, but nothing grows there. Another quote I like to connect to this first stage of the process is a quote by Vernon Howard. How can you ever unlock yourself from a prison if you don't know that you're in one? So when he started working with me, I got him to start entertaining an outside why idea. Now, the why idea for this entrepreneur was he wanted to double the turnover of his business. And that meant that he'd need to go speak to the local refinery to double his tonnage to 600 tons. He'd need to go to the bank to finance a new tanker, new asset, new head, because he'd need another truck. And I think the cost is in the region of 4 million, 4.5, I'm not quite sure, but somewhere up there. And I'm talking South African rands. And he needed to start marketing, so he needed to get new clients, so that obviously the new product or the extra product, the additional product was, he had a customer for, client for it. So anyway, that was his goal when he started working with me. That's what he got onto his goal card. That's what he was working with. Now, as long as you entertain a why idea, just in the conscious thinking mind, nothing's going to happen because we haven't handed it over to the subconscious mind yet. And I think we all know we act based on emotion, right? Now, here's where things really start getting heated up. And this is called the terror barrier, the third stage in the process. And this is where this entrepreneur starts impressing that why idea on the subconscious mind. Now, I want you to see that line on your screen between the conscious mind and the subconscious. I want you to see it as a filter. And there's only one of two ways an idea gets from the conscious thinking mind into the subconscious. Only one of two ways. One is like this: emotional impact, because the subconscious is the emotional mind. So emotional impact, loss of a job, loss of a relationship, loss of a loved one. Normally, an emotional impact is negative. It can be positive, but normally it's negative. 9/11 for the people in New York City, extremely negative emotional impact. Another thing with emotional impact, generally we cannot control it. The other way for you to get your goal or the why idea into the subconscious is constant spaced repetition of the same idea over and over and over. Hence, the suggestion that you carry the goal card with you every day. You read it as many times as you can. You affirm it, right? That's you getting involved in repetition, which is going to move the idea into the subconscious mind, which then moves you into an XY vibration. And XY vibration is a foreign vibration. You've moved into an area you've never been in before. Now, when that happens, instantly, worry and doubt sets in on a conscious level, fear on a subconscious level, and anxiety on a physical level. All hell is breaking loose in your body. Now, why is that? It's because the X-type idea is trying to pull you back into the comfort zone, and the Y-type idea is trying to push you forward to go after what it is that you really want. And at this particular point, most entrepreneurs, most people, when they step out to take action on that Y-type idea, on the big goal, become smack bang up against what we call the terror barrier. And sadly, at this point, most people bounce right back into bondage. You know, and they start rationalizing with themselves. They start rationing lies to themselves, like, you know, this entrepreneur in question, you know, I'm doing okay. You know, why do I want to risk the cash flow? Company might not be able to afford this new asset. You know, the family says I'm doing well. Am I being greedy? Or, you know, all these ideas start playing in the mind. Now, if what you're doing is not constituting growth, you're heading in the opposite direction. There's another basic law of life called create or disintegrate. You're either going forward or you're going backward. So we want to make sure that we're continually moving forward. Now, most people bounce right back into bondage, but if you understand what's happening here, if you understand the psychological process, what's happening, you can crash right through that terror barrier. Now, just to back up here for a moment, imagine that you're sitting in the old age home at 85, 90 years old, and you're sitting in a wheelchair. They've wheeled you to the window, open window, looks out at the garden. And imagine if you've played it safe all your life. Imagine the regrets you'd be filled with at that particular moment. Now imagine if you really step out and go after something big, something that you really want. Even if things don't go according to plan, even if there's challenges and speed bumps along the way, at least looking out of that window, you'll have some sort of self-respect for yourself, you know. You probably say something like, you know, gosh, that was a rough ride. You know, I learned a heck of a lot along the way. And I learned a lot about myself. But at least you'd have some respect, some self-respect looking out of that window. Now, Bob Proctor says that understanding is the key to freedom. If you understand what's happening here, you can crash right through that terror barrier and you can find yourself in an area called freedom. Now, does the understanding alleviate the fear? Absolutely not. You'll still feel the fear. But because you understand what's happening, you can go through the fear. And then you just keep rereading your goal, keep rereading it, keep internalizing your goal. And eventually the X-type programming will disappear and the Y will become your new paradigm or your new programmed state. And you'll be in a Y vibration, you think Y-type thoughts. And one day you'll just find yourself driving down the highway, in a very comfortable place. You know, the company, the cash flow is easily affording that new asset. You know, business has grown. Everything is comfortable again. But you know what's happened then, right? Is the Y has become the bondage. Then you've got to set a new and bigger goal to go after because we constantly want to be moving forward, create to disintegrate, right? So just to tell you a bit more about this entrepreneur story. He actually phoned me. He ordered the tanker, the new tanker. He phoned me a day before he was due to take delivery, and he said he spoke to the lady who was busy with his order, and he told her to cancel his order. And I managed to speak him through it, and the next morning he phoned her to cancel his cancellation. And right now, 2 years later, 2.5 years later, he's running gas across the border here in South Africa into Botswana. His business has exploded. He's bought a 10,000 square foot or square meter a piece of land plot out in an area here close to where I stay. His business has literally exploded, and he would not have experienced that if he allowed the fear to hold him back. So just to recap quickly, I want to take you through what we said we were going to cover. So the 3 types of goals we've been through, which is the ABC goals, and which one is the only one worth trading your life for? It's a big C type goal. It's a big fantasy type goal. You don't need to know how, you just need to know that you will, right? Often when I say to people, worth trading your life for, I can actually feel, I see the sting that it stings in. Whatever we trade, whatever we're doing right now, whatever you're doing right now, you're trading your life for it. So you might as well trade it for something really worthy of you, something big. Secondly, I was going to give you a proven formula to achieve any goal you desire, even when you don't know how. The goal card. This simple idea, if you use this, you'll tell me. You'll start attracting things, serendipitous things will start happening, opportunities, resources will start, because there's a cybernetic mechanism, remember? A reticular mechanism. As you focus on the goal every day, you carry the card with you, you're going to start attracting opportunities to you. And then thirdly, which we've just covered, is how to overcome fear when it strikes so that you do not sabotage your success. So we've covered all of those ideas. However, there's still a problem. And the problem is, it's one thing understanding or getting these concepts and ideas, but to put it into action or to implement it is a whole different ball game. And, because of that, I want to offer a select few a 45-minute complimentary goal discovery call with me. But the criteria is, if you're an entrepreneur and you have a big goal that you're struggling to achieve and you want my help, I can help you. Go and book one of those slots. So you can actually, you can use your phone app on your camera app on your phone to scan the QR code, and it will take you directly to my Calendly link, and you can just book a slot there. So first, and then secondly, maybe you don't have a big fantasy C-type goal and you want help creating that big goal. I can help you with that as well. So just to run through it again, there's only 45 slots. There's over 250 registrations. I think at last count, 260 registrations for this particular webinar. And obviously, I'm human. I can't speak to everybody. I've only got X amount of time in a day, so there's a limited amount of slots. But if you have a big business goal that you're working towards and you're struggling to achieve and you'd like my help, go and book one of those slots quickly. It's going to work on a first come, first served basis. So whoever books first, I'll sit and I'll have a conversation. I'll give you 45 minutes of my time to see how I can help you. Or if you need help creating that big C-type goal for your business, for your life, I want to help you with that as well. So that pretty much wraps up my presentation. We've got 10, 11 minutes here for some questions. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat window, and pretty sure Marlita will also chime in and help us answer some of your questions. If you have any questions.
Just before we go into Q&A, I'm going to drop in the chat that Serenity recording that Lee was referring to from the book by James Allen, As a Man Thinketh. So that is something that you can benefit from in terms of keeping your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in alignment.
Thank you. Thank you, Marlita.
So we have the Q&A bar for entering your questions, but I think we have one question that's come through the normal chat from Chris. What happens when they let you out of the boot of the car? He wants to know. And what was your first goal, knowing you were going to live from this experience?
So what happened when they let me out of the boot of the car? They actually still had firearms on me, and they said, Chris, you know, please don't look at our faces, which I happily obliged to. And they got me to lay face down on the grass, which is obviously, I mean, not knowing what was going to happen. But once they pulled away, once they left, as you can imagine, it was a feeling of exhilaration, you know, just happy to have made it through that ordeal. What was my first goal, knowing you were going to live from? Look, that I don't necessarily have an answer to, Chris. I will tell you this. Later on that evening, some of the family members came over to come and see how I was doing. And my cousin's son, Kale, we were talking under the carport, and you know, I said to him, something good is going to come from this. I remember something good is going to come from this. And he didn't tell me at the time, but when he left, he said he thought to himself, this man doesn't understand what just happened to him. You know, he thought I was detached from reality. But obviously, understanding the law of polarity, I knew that, you know, something really bad, something good can come, or something good's going to come from it. And like I've already shared, something good did come from being alive after that experience. So, are there any other questions?
Calvin asked the question, do you have a registered business to book a call with you? So maybe you can go over how to actually book the call again.
Okay, sure. Calvin, so there's 45 goal discovery slots. A call with me, 45 minutes. On your screen is a link to my Calendly page, or you could use your phone to scan that QR code, and it will take you directly to the page. Choose a slot, and I'll have a conversation with you. So that's how you can get to book a slot with me. Any other questions?
I don't see questions. I see a few people giving you some encouraging comments. Very inspiring, and just validating your the importance you placed on overcoming fear and not sabotaging your success.
Okay, so I've got these two questions that come to mind that people normally are, you know, would like to know the answer to, and maybe answer them. So the first question is, how long will your goal, if you create a big fantasy C-type goal, how long does it take for my goal to move into form? How long does it take to manifest that goal? Now, a goal is a spiritual seed. So it's a spiritual seed. Remember, I introduced you to this image, right? So you've got the conscious mind, the subconscious. Through repetition, you move it into the subconscious. Now, the subconscious I love the way Earl Nightingale refers to the subconscious. It's like fertile soil, right? And the analogy he uses, he says, in a fertile piece of soil, you can plant corn, and not a 16th of an inch away, you can plant nightshade, a deadly poison. One will grow in equal as in equal abundance as the other. Now, once your goal is planted into the seat of your subconscious mind, the law of gestation kicks in. Now, when you plant a carrot seed, we know we wait 72 days before we have a fully grown carrot. A baby, we know we got to wait 280 days, 9 months. With regards to your goal, depending on how big it is, I've got a date on my goal card, but we're estimating, you shooting at the target, and you don't know how long it's going to take, because the thing is, you're going to have to attract certain resources. You're going to have to develop certain skills, certain abilities to become that person, right? So in terms of how long it will take, we don't have a clear, definitive answer. It's all subjective to where you are, what you're going after. That's one question that often comes up. There was another question I wanted to run through.
We do have some new questions in the Q&A bar, Lee, if you're ready for new questions.
Sure, Marlita.
We have a question from Corlero. I've always had a C-type goal, but it seems that others' responsibilities always take precedence.
Leroux. Always had a C-type goal, but it seems that others' responsibilities always takes precedent. Look, we've got to put ourselves first, and not from a selfish perspective, because if you're not happy, how are we going to make other people happy, right? So often people, we do things, this is just my opinion, right? We do things to please others, but we compromise in ourselves. You've got to be happy first. You've got to go after what you want. And when you achieve that, then you can give more, you can do more, you can bless more people around you. What's your view on that, Marlita?
So this one's very near and dear to my heart, because I am a person who gives a lot to other people, right? So I didn't want to stop being a giver to other people. But what I found in carrying my goal card and doing the repetition every day and really feeling the feelings associated with achieving my goal, I was able to still continue to give, but also strive toward my goal. And if I ever leave a day without moving toward my goal, I don't feel good about my day. And so both can happen. It's just instead of shoving your goal aside day after day, your goal also gets achieved while you give to others.
Love it. What a great answer. Thank you, Marlita.
We have another one.
Questions?
Yeah, we have Anonymous. This is from Anonymous. It's been 4 years having this extremely excellent business idea. Sounds exciting. I've been wanting to pitch, but fear of the unknown always kicks in. Capital in there, but very hesitant to begin. How to overcome that?
So capital being an issue. Look, the thing is, you start where you are with what you've got, right? When I set the goal to speak on an international stage, nothing, absolutely nothing qualified me for it. IT all of my adult life. I had no certifications or any level of education that allowed me to do what I wanted to do. But I attracted everything I needed, and you always find the things you need for what it is that you really want. And the thing is, what you're saying here is the fear of the unknown always kicks in, right? We've already spoken about that. You got to get used to the fear because it's part of the process. A lot of speakers or a lot of teachers that I study, they say, we got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's why entrepreneurship is such a tough game. It toughens you up, right? Because you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. With regards to the capital, you'll attract. And if you fall in love with the goal, with the big goal, if you knock on one door and they say no, you go to the next one and you continue on and on and on and on, even if you get to the 50th door, and that's the door that's going to open for you. But the thing is, once you move it into the heart, the subconscious, it's going to drive you from the inside, and you're just not going to quit. So, Anonymous, I hope. Do you want to add anything in there, Marlita?
No, I would just say what I said before. As you hold to your goal, and it's a very special goal, it's something that's actually been spiritually planted in you, you will have the resources come to you to rise up to meet you. It's absolutely true. The diligence is in the doing every day and the repeating every day, constant spaced repetition. But the amazing part of this journey is it does rise up to meet you.
Marlita, I see we're 1 minute over. Thank you, everyone, for staying on till the end and being with us. I hope you've gotten value from today's presentation. And I look forward to connecting with you and speaking with you. Marlita, thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.